So today we're going to do something quite interesting because in the Coupe de France of Valorant, the old Carmine Corp roster was playing against a team called Valorians. And Valorians, well, this game piqued my interest. Someone mentioned it on my Discord to go and check it out because they were playing Harbor and Viper together on Icebox, and I thought that was, a pretty interesting thing, so I went in and checked it out. Basically, the Harbor is replacing Sage here for them, and actually, it didn't look too bad, I'm starting to, get this sense of, like, you know, maybe Harbor isn't completely useless, right? Like, I still don't think he's good, but, it's not completely useless because they did some really nice things, I thought, and had some interesting ideas, and there were times really where I thought Carmine were just confused and didn't really know what to do, and we'll see, like, they actually lose this round, I should say, Valorians, this pistol round, but they do some interesting things on it. So let's take a look. So they're going to start off with this early cascade in here, right? They're just going to send in the early silver dart, send the cascade down there. You can see it just here as well, and it's just going to stop there, right? Obviously denying any line of vision from, someone playing in tower, perhaps, or, just any line of vision to these guys running down there. And obviously the early dart is to clear out this space as well. So, they use this basically to get, some early A control. They used it pretty often anytime that they were coming towards A, but as we watch the round play out, they're then actually going to stop and turn around, but they're going to leave the Sova here. Actually, the chamber gets hit up as well, down a bit, which you'll see just here, down to 19 HP, but they're just going to leave the Sova there and actually come back towards mid. So the Sova stays towards A, and the rest of the team actually is going to group up and come towards mid. Obviously, one advantage of playing the Harbor is they were able to pretty much do, the Viper wall on B, Orb and mid every round, no problems, because they still have smokes for A if they need it to. Some teams even forego smokes on A overall, but the Harbor basically is going to come into mid here, as you see, and they're going to do this wall just there. Very, very interesting wall. Obviously blocks off the line of sight of this Sova, as you can see. Now, the chamber is underneath here as well, so he actually does have vision of them kind of, potentially crossing and whatnot. So it's not quite as effective as they think, but I did think it was an interesting plan. And this cascade here as well is one that I actually pointed out when, I was kind of first testing out Harbor, that a cascade across here to block this vision, from this way, as you scale through mid, is a pretty effective one, and definitely combined with, a wall that maybe blocks off the line of sight of kitchen as well. Or this one probably does the same thing. You put a cascade somewhere in here, there's like a little gap all of a sudden that you can create. Now, the chamber is there this round, but most rounds, people aren't in this space. And so it just creates some confusion. And then I think eventually here, they're going to group back up towards B, but here's where the nice little fake kind of comes in. So there's some confusion here from Carmine, right? There's just been a lot of pressure towards mid. Now, this chamber has, made sure that no one's walked up there, but now we're going to get a Sova dart, and we're going to get a drone come in from this Sova as well, and that convinces Carmine, oh, it must be a B hit, whereas in reality, we can see that it's actually not the case, and they can use this Viper wall actually to kind of sneak their way up a bit here, as you can see as well, Valorians, and so they do that as the rest of Carmine is just rotating across to the side. The drone comes in, the Sova is just kind of, running in onto site, just shooting bullets randomly. The rotates start to come in, but actually now the jig is up, as Shin does see that, actually Valorians are on the complete opposite side of the map. And as I said, they actually will lose this post plant here, and Carmine will be able to, complete this retake as they get that first kill there. We get another Harbor wall in there, though, right? Kind of, again, an extra kind of layer to this is that you can layer, obviously, Harbor wall, and then when the Harbor wall goes down, you have the Viper wall still up, and kind of a nice little extra thing that you can do there as well. And so even though they're going to lose this round, you start to see, there's some potential here for some, mischief, let's say, of, some of these fakes. Obviously, they do have the Sage wall on a pistol round retake, which is just a very strong ability. They do actually manage to kill the Sage here, but we end up in this situation where it's a 3v1, and this Sova is not in a great spot, and unfortunately even misses that shock dart, and so Carmine win the round. And now let's come to round number 4, because you're going to see the kind of advantage, I think, and again, I kind of mentioned this the first time that I saw Harbor and kind of thought about Harbor on this map, the kind of advantage that Harbor can kind of give you in this kind of weird way that it plays out. So this time the dart does get destroyed. They use that same cascade early on, and they actually get the first kill here in mid. And this was the big problem for Carmine, particularly early on with trying to deal with this. Because what's going to happen next, you're going to see, so we get the first kill here in mid just before the orb went up, and so we're in a 5v4 for Carmine, and normally when you're in a 4v5, right, this is the first full gun round for both teams, you want to be taking some kind of risk, you want to be, trying to find that next kill, trying to even up the score and whatnot. But there's going to be a harbor wall in here. Now, actually, they missed the harbor wall a bit this time, as you can see just here. It kind of just is a bit short of where it actually needs to be. But this harbor is just going to create chaos, basically, in mid. And this is, I think, the main use of harbor, by the way, on this map, on the attacking side, is just to kind of make chaos in mid. Because here goes that cascade again. And the chamber for Carmine is actually going to run through this cascade. But you're going to look at where the 4 players are, right? Basically, all that's really being used here is the Viper orb that is pretty normal and this harbor util, right? The Sova is looking here, the Viper is looking here, right? The Chamber is looking here. Even the KO has kind of tucked in and seems a bit worried about what's going on in Kitchen as well. They're in a 4v5 at this point, right? They need to be taking aggressive plays, you know, they need to be trying to, like, get into aggressive spaces, you know, try and take some space, try and find a kill. Instead, they're just all focused on mid. And that is kind of, I think, the early problem that they had is they just didn't know what to do against a team that could actually go mid successfully on Icebox, right? That there was a real threat there of, well, we can't just sit back and play the normal line of sights that you would because of this harbor, right? And because of what the harbor is doing. And so it just added this extra element. And so you're in this 4v5 situation, but now it's too late, right? They've given up all this space, but this is not where you want to be for Carmine, right? You're in a 4v5. You're playing retake B and you're playing retake A because harbor caused such a distraction in mid that you had to take your eyes off both. And you know, that's not where you want to be in a 4v5. You know, that's the last place you want to be, basically. And then they're even going to use the harbor to do something different as well, because they send in a different harbor wall. Yes, we've got this Viper wall here, but we're going to send in a different harbor wall, and we're going to plant in a different location. You see the KO nade comes into the normal default spot. In goes the Cove to help protect the plant. In comes a Sovereign as well, and they're actually going to get the spike down, right, and plant in a different location. And so with that harbor wall, you see a Sova dart has to be used here. It was just used here for Carmine as well to kind of clear this close area. No one's there, you know, and now, again, they can just retreat and kind of come back and play time, essentially. And, like, this is just a round where you could see that Carmine, you know, probably have never played against this. They get the kill in mid as well. We end up in a 5v3. And at this point, you know, it's pretty much round over. And I just thought, it was just a really good, I think, example of just like the chaos, right? Like Harbor, I think, is on that Yoru level where if you just haven't seen Yoru on that map before and they're doing weird things that you've never seen before, it's going to take you some time to kind of adjust to it, right? And we even get the Harbor ult here to just kind of confirm it. As you see, this Viper is just like in a bit of a world of trouble there. As the Harbor ult comes in, that pushes them back as well. We guarantee this 5v3, and they're actually going to manage to well, lose a couple kills here at the very end, but overall a very successful round for Valorians, and they would win this crucial round. So now let's come to round number 8 as well, and this one's just going to be a nice, straightforward A hit in this instance. We're going to get that same cascade that comes in towards here, the same dart that goes up here, and we're going to get an early reckoning here from the Harbor as well, as you will see. So there goes, you know, Carmine going for a bit more of an aggressive play here. There goes that cascade, and now in comes the Harbor ult, and you see that the Viper kind of feels like, oh, well, I'm in a pretty bad spot here, right, to deal with this Harbor ult, because either I'm going to get caught probably getting stunned running back, which is not where you want to be, so they try and just take a fight instead before the stun comes in, but Valorians are ready for that. They get that first kill. Again, we end up in a 5v4 just here, and so now in they start to come, right, and at this point, you know, they got the site. We're in a 5v4. It's feeling pretty good here for the side of Valorians. And we're going to see a nice little harbor wall come in as well, right? This harbor wall that just comes in just here, it's going to block off this line of sight here and block off this, right? And this is not an angle that you're normally used to, you know, having to come through a smoke on. But it's quite a difficult one to come through a smoke, you know, through this angle, right? Because they could be on both sides of you. You don't really know which way to look potentially as well, particularly without a flash. You know, it is quite difficult and quite worrying. And actually here, you know, they pretty much back off as the drone comes in. It does get shot, but you can see, look at them, that they like, oh, we don't want to really, you know, push this wall. You got the Viper on the lurk here as well, as you can see just there. And then we're actually going to get even the second cascade comes in here again and does the exact same thing, where it's like, oh, do we want to walk through this, right? You know, through this, where we can be crossfired in so many different angles. You know, it's not easy at all that Viper manages to get that kill. And now, again, it's pretty much round over. Carmine just have to go and save. And again, you start to see, like, you know, there's something here, right? Like, I'm not going to say that this is meta or that it's better than Sage or, you know, that, you know, every team should try this. But I think that, you know, it didn't look bad, right? And there was plenty of rounds like this where, we saw in this round that the Harbor seemingly made a, substantial difference to how the round played out. The utility looked pretty good, and, it helped Valorians ultimately win this game. Now, so far in this video, I have been skewing positive about Harbor, but there definitely were weaknesses. For as good as the attack was, and I love some of the attacking ideas, and I love some of the chaos that they caused as well, on the defensive side, there was a bit more of a struggle, and it took Valorians like a bit of time, I think, to kind of figure out what they needed to do with Harbor. And, once they started to play a bit more aggressively, and I do think that that is the key, right? That Harbor just doesn't have that delaying mechanic. They're also playing a jet as well. Really, there was probably only one way where this defense side was going to work, and it's what they're going to do here, where they have the Sova, jet, and the Harbor grouped up, and they're going to get aggressive, right? And whilst you let the Viper and the Chamber kind of lock down other areas of the map, these three, ideally, I think they did need to be aggressive, and that's what they're going to do just here, and it's going to work for them pretty well, because we're going to get an early Cascade and our early Dart as well. So Cascade is going to come up, and it's just going to land about here. The Jet is going to updraft onto the Rafters here as well. We just got an early Silver Dart that got destroyed also. And they're basically just going to, hit them in the face. As you can see just here, we get the first kill there. You can see, actually you can't because my head is in the way. But what's going to happen is this KO is just going to end up walking in front of this Cascade and ultimately pay for that with his life. And they managed to get another one here from the Jet, and all of a sudden we're in a 5v2 and we're feeling pretty good. And you see that the KO got sectioned off from the rest of his team because of that Cascade. You can see the body is just in front of that there. The drone comes out, spots both the other players as well, and they're feeling pretty good about their situation, Valorians here. And yeah, overall the defensive side, was a bit more shaky, let's put it that way. It definitely wasn't as clean as the attacking side, and definitely they had their struggles in certain rounds. But Icebox is a map, I think, where, defensive aggression can work. It has worked in the past, and if you, can surprise your opponents, as we see, we actually end up in a 2v1 here. The Sage manages to do pretty well, but ultimately Valorians will manage to come back and win the round just there, and it would become a 13-11 game, but they would go on to win it as well. So overall, my thoughts on this are that, am I willing to say that this is better than, what's currently meta, or, playing Sage and KO, for instance, over Harbor and not going for Harbor? I'm not willing to say that it's better than it, but I think that it's not that bad, or at least there is, ideas that you can have in there that could work. And if you put the time into Harbor to, find enough of those creative ideas, you can cause some chaos, and you probably can find, a slight edge of, one, people not being used to playing against Harbor, and two, being able to do things that I don't really think you can do without Harbor on particularly Icebox, where this middle part of the map is just, normally just a dead zone that no one ever really goes, aside from the odd lurk. But, we saw that Valorians were able to create a lot of pressure in this area. They got a lot of kills in these areas, which normally doesn't happen that often, but they were able to, because Karmine kind of, I think, struggled to deal with the fact that they didn't know what was going on in mid, which is, not often the case on Icebox.